Welcome back to the Deep Six Wrestling Podcast. I'm Pat, and I'm here for our weekly AEW Dynamite coverage. Once again, a solo show from me as my partner in action. Joey is missing in action. One day he will return to the podcast. When that day is, remains to be seen. But I'm here. We're going to talk AEW from last night, which was May 4th. 2022. But before we do that, make sure you subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening to, whether it's on YouTube, if you want to subscribe to our YouTube channel, or on our podcast feed on basically all streaming services that have podcasts: Apple, Stitcher, TuneIn, Overcast, Breaker, Spotify, Google, you name it, we're there. You can find us. Just search Deep Six Wrestling Podcast. You'll find us. You can also follow us over on Twitter at Deep Six Wrestling. No G at the end, so just Deep Six Wrestling. And we do tweet there whenever we put up a new episode, as well as just randomly doing polls and tweeting thoughts on wrestling, so be sure to follow us over there as well. Before we go into Dynamite, I guess it is worth noting that the pre-sale did start for Forbidden Door today, which is going to be on June 26th at the United Center in Chicago, and per Wrestle Tickets over on Twitter, they have a sellout. It was an instant sellout. They sold 14,000 tickets, and I believe there was 20,000 people in the queue. So 14,000 tickets have been sold for Forbidden Door at the United Center for AEW and New Japan's Forbidden Door pay-per-view. And WrestleTakes did note that more seats could or would likely be added. So it will be upwards of 14,000 people, most likely, in attendance for this pay-per-view at the end of June. Which, kind of ruins some people's narratives about this show needing to draw casual fans and people not being interested. So there you have it. They proved them wrong once again. It's getting kind of stale that people still are on this. But here we go. So looking forward to it. No matches announced yet, and they still managed to do this. It's going to be a fun time, most likely. But before we get to that, we also have Double or Nothing coming up on May 29th. So back-to-back months with AEW pay-per-views, and these are both full-price pay-per-views. So if you're in the U.S., you're going to be paying, if you're buying these legally, you're going to be paying $50 for both of them. So just keep that in mind. The other piece of news before we actually jump into AEW is one that theoretically could play a role in the future here. If we're jumping overseas to Japan, over in the Stardom promotion, the SWA World Championship changed hands in Stardom, which isn't really like the World Championship. It's a title that has an interesting stipulation where the person holding it has to defend it against people of different nationalities and backgrounds. And Mayu Iwatani, the icon of Stardom, has won the belt from Tekla. And obviously, for fans of Stardom, I guess I should say obviously, Tekla is the only like gaijin wrestler over there. There's ways that they could get other people to challenge her, but the list is much shorter than if she were to go elsewhere. So, in theory, with Forbidden Door possibly needing a women's match, and with Bushiroad owning both New Japan and Stardom, and with indications being that AEW and Stardom would like to work together in the future, I don't think it's too far of a jump to suggest that Mayu Iwatani could eventually make her way over to the States to wrestle in AEW, defending this SWA title against some of the AEW roster. New Japan also has a working relationship with Impact, so theoretically you could also see Mayu Iwatani in Impact. or just wrestling on the indie scene in America with different promotions. So it is worth noting, and I do think that them putting the title on one of the biggest stars in the company is definitely a move not to really elevate the title, but I don't want to say it's not to elevate the title, but it's not just being done randomly. Like, this feels like a strategic move that you would put this on somebody like Mayu, who's already wrestled in front of American audiences with ROH before. So, and she's also one of the most notable names in the company that like people recognize her name value. So, it is worth noting that we could eventually see her come to AEW or Impact or any of the other American promotions to wrestle, which could be cool. So I just wanted to state that before we go into Dynamite, and that's going to be the bulk of this episode. And then we'll be out of here. As a reminder, before we get too deep into this, Ryan and Angela's Impact Power Hour will be back this week. I believe they are doing the review for it tomorrow, which is Friday. So that'll be out sometime tomorrow. And then Saturday, Under Siege is back for Impact, another Impact Plus show. So Ryan and myself will probably do a review for that on Saturday night. And so that'll be out Sunday. So this weekend, you're going to have this show that you're listening to now. You're going to have the Impact Wrestling Power Hour, where they're going to be talking about the Go Home show for Under Siege, and then most likely an Under Siege review. And then sometime next week, I believe, we are doing a prediction show for the Best of the Super Juniors tournament for New Japan. So busy times ahead, but that will send us into AEW Dynamite from May the 4th. May the 4th be with you, to any Star Wars fans. And yeah, we'll just get started here. To kick off the show, we had Adam Cole come out. He went straight to commentary booth, but got a really big reaction here from a very hot Baltimore crowd for most of the show. And this set up our opening match, which was the Owen Hart Cup qualifier between Jeff Hardy and Bobby Fish. Matt came down with Jeff, and Kyle came down with Bobby. As for the match itself, I thought this was an interesting choice to start the show. This is Jeff Hardy's first singles match in AEW, and it was interesting to see his first singles match being against another older person instead of putting him up against a young guy, but it's fine. I thought the match itself wasn't anything I would write home about and be like, man, this was just so good. But I did think they did a really effective job in making Jeff play an underdog babyface here, and the crowd bid on this. They were really, really hot for Jeff Hardy here. So I mean, it worked. And eventually, Jeff Hardy would fight back and get control of this, and he would win with a whisper in the wind, and then followed it up with a swanton bomb. And during the match, we also cut up into the rafters to see to see Sting and Darby Allin watching the match. And we would later understand that there was more significance to this, as Darby Allin will be facing Jeff Hardy in round 1 of the Owen Hart tournament. After the match, the Young Bucks came out, and they had a big stare down with the Hardys, which the crowd reacted to, and then they went to go check on Bobby Fish. So it does seem like we are going to be gearing up for a Young Bucks Hardys program. I would assume that they would meet at Double or Nothing as a big match. So if you're a Young Bucks fan, great, and if you're a Hardys fan, cool. After this, they aired a cut-down version of the William Regal promo from the Road 2 special on YouTube. If you haven't seen the full thing, you should go out of your way to watch this, but I'm so glad that they aired at least part of this. It was just really well done. Regal cut just such an intense, violent promo here, and the footage of him, Danielson, Yuta, and Moxley all training together just really sells this group. Blackpool Combat Club is seriously becoming one of, if not my favorite factions, in all of wrestling right now. So, really cool to see. And then we got Regal joining commentary. He came out and was just the exact opposite of this intense, violent man. He was just happy and having a good time. So, get you a man who can do both. And this went into our Blackpool Combat Club match here. Danielson made his entrance. Yuta made his entrance, accompanied by Regal. And then Moxley made his entrance to the crowd. I do kind of wish these guys would get one entrance, but at the same time, they do just feel like a special group right now. And they are a special group because you have Danielson, who's a heel, Moxley, who's a tweener, and Yuta, who's a certified babyface. So it's a very interesting dynamic to see a group that has 3 different character alignments, all being led by William Regal, who is jumping between a goofy guy on commentary and this super intense, like, scary man in promos. But I absolutely adore this group so far, and I'm very excited for Wheeler Yuta in the Best of the Super Juniors. I think he's gonna have a good time in that, and I think the Japan crowds will hopefully take to him because he's really good technically. They took on the AFO, represented by the Butcher, the Blade, and Angelico, however you pronounce it. This was just, I mean, AFO got in more offense than some of the other teams that they faced, but this was just, everybody knew it was coming here. Blackpool Combat Club picked up the win, and they did their finish where they all just lock in submissions and then beat everybody just down to a pulp, and then they lock in the submissions again. And so BCC pick up the win, and you love to see it. Danielson and Moxley are ranked now on the tag team rankings for what it's worth. So take that as you will. Because after this, we went backstage for interaction between the tag team champs and most likely their next challengers. We had Ricky Starks and Powerhouse Hobbs confronting Jungle Boy, Luchasaurus, and Christian Cage here. And Jungle Boy has challenged for the FTW Championship, which he noted that Starks just does not defend often. And that was made official, I believe, for Dynamite next week. So we have an FTW title match. And I'm assuming it's going to be interesting because Starks and Hobbs are now feuding with Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus and Keith Lee and Swerve, which we'll get to in a second here. But we'll just go to that. So after this, when we came back from commercial, we got Keith Lee and Swerve backstage. They said that they have unfinished business with Team Taz, and Keith Lee noted that they are going to swerve in their glory, which could be a new tag team name for these guys. We already saw the chemistry that Keith Lee, Swerve, Hobbs, and Starks have together with that incredible tag team match they had a few weeks ago. So running this back just makes sense, but I'm going to be interested to see if this becomes a multi-man match, or multi-team match, I should say, at the pay-per-view, because obviously we have 3 teams here that seem to be vying for these titles. So I think it's a very real possibility this ends up as a triple threat for the AEW tag belts with Starks and Hobbs and Swerve and Keith challenging for Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus' titles, which I think would be fun. You could also, I guess, throw in Red Dragon if you wanted, if they're not doing anything. Although I could see Red Dragon facing FTR for the ROH belts. So I don't know, but regardless, the 3 teams involved here I'm pretty excited for. And Ricky versus Jungle Boy in a singles match next week sounds really good. Wardlow, we got his entrance. We got like a full Goldberg entrance this week where he had handcuffs and the camera followed him from getting out of the car to walking into the arena, walking out here onto the stage. And crowd just obviously very into this with the Wardlow chants. And MJF and Shawn Spears would cut this off as he's in the ring. And MJF ran down the fans and says that he's not even going to stay out here to watch the match. He's going to go to the back. And that Wardlow should be scared because the man coming out to face him is 7 feet tall, and it's Big W William Morrissey. He called him William Morrissey here, which I thought was interesting. I don't think anything's coming of this. Obviously, Morrissey has been an Impact for the last little while, and he's doing some incredible work there. If you haven't seen what he's been doing, he has really shed the former Big Cass gimmick, and he's just his own guy at this point. But he goes by W. Morrissey, so hearing MJF call him William Morrissey, I just as somebody who likes Impact, I hate the W. Morrissey name, and I just think the name, like William Morrissey or Bill Morrissey, sounds so much better. So maybe this was MJF just going into business for himself and wanting to help the guy get a better name. But W. Morrissey came out here, and he came out here with his Impact theme, his Impact Titantron, and commentary referred to him as an Impact Wrestling star. And this was the first of 2 people who on this show would be Impact Wrestling talents, and both would get the treatment of being just presented as their Impact Wrestling personas. They'd be referred to by Impact. AEW's Twitter would put the @Impact. Impact's Twitter was doing it. So for what it's worth, this is the first time that AEW and Impact are working together again. So, if you're into that, cool. If you're not, I guess sucks to suck. I thought Morrissey really shined here. I thought this was a really good showing for him. Nobody in their right mind thought this guy was going to win, and he shouldn't have. Like, regardless of what Impact's doing, the story is Wardlow here. He's on a path of destruction going towards MJF. Nobody should just be coming in and cutting him off. But the fact that they really let Morrissey get a lot in here, I thought was really good. The crowd at one point, like, a smaller portion of the crowd was chanting, "We want Enzo," and then a large portion was drowning them out with "No, we don't." Morrissey, I thought, handled this really well, mocking the Enzo dance and then just flipping the crowd off, and he shut them up. So, again, I just think that Morrissey's look is great. He's gotten himself into ridiculously good shape, and his ring work is vastly improved from when he was Big Cass. And eventually he would be taken down by a single power bomb, and this kind of just, I thought, like, some people are probably going to view this as like, oh, you know, they don't really see him as a threat, but no, this is pretty clear what happened here. Wardlow hit him with the power bomb and immediately pinned him instead of taunting him and, like, playing to the crowd by, like, getting them to chant one more time. This was just, I like, this guy's a threat. I'm going to pin him immediately. And it worked, you know. I thought this was a really solid little match they had here. It wasn't too long, but Morrissey got some shine. Impact got a little bit of promotion here, and Wardlow continues to look strong. After the match, Wardlow refused to be handcuffed and just took out security. Spears and MJF called out reinforcements. Wardlow took everybody out, and then he grabbed a mic and said he wouldn't stop until he gets his hands on MJF, or that MJF releases him from his contract. MJF says that they could have a match, but he's going to have some conditions, and he's going to save them for next week when they have a contract signing in the most magical city on earth, Long Island. The Wardlow MJF stuff still continues to be just, like, absolutely incredible. The crowd reactions to this are great. The segments are always entertaining. It's just a wonderful time to see. And Wardlow is over like nobody's business. So, you know, pretty fun stuff. We go backstage for a little segment here with Tony Schiavone. He's Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter on one side, and Toni Storm and Ruby Soho. And again, I thought that, like, the stuff they're doing here with Jamie Hayter and Toni Storm, they are really building this up as something special. And I don't know if enough people are giving them credit for it, because, you know, people like to critique the AEW women's division, and a lot of the critique's fair, but, like, we'll get to it at the end of the show. I'll give my thoughts, because I thought this week was a really good week for AEW and their treatment of, like, the women talent. But the stuff with Jamie and Toni, they've been doing really well. And even Britt here. Britt was genuinely funny in this segment, mocking Toni and Ruby for wearing matching tops. And Ruby, somebody who has been fairly absent on television, which I'm not a fan of because I like Ruby, she got a nice line in here at Britt saying that she hasn't forgotten and she still owes Britt a receipt. And for those who, you know, can remember things over, or not even over a year ago, under a year ago, AEW's biggest show to date happened in September, and Ruby and Britt main evented, and Britt cheated to win. Ruby saying that she owes her a receipt for this. They're playing this up as, you know, history. So I'm assuming Britt and Ruby are going to meet in the tournament. I don't think Ruby's going to win, because I'm still predicting that the finals are Toni, Storm, and Britt. But we'll see, depending on how the brackets shape up, I guess. But yeah, I thought it was a fun little segment backstage. Hangman Page came out here. This was him making his return after missing last week due to COVID. He was asked about CM Punk's challenge. The match was made official last week, by the way, so it is Punk versus Hangman for the AEW World Championship at Double or Nothing. And Hangman said it'd be easy to talk about how excited he was to face Punk and how he's looking forward to the match, but that's not going to happen. At Double or Nothing, there's not going to be a handshake or a masturbatory Bret Hart tribute match, because at Double or Nothing, Hangman's going to destroy Punk. And he noticed a fan with the CM Punk shirt and called him out and said that after the match, he's going to be running to the merch stand to get a refund. He's going to spoil it for the fans, but Punk's not here tonight, and Page suspects he's out filming another TV show. At Double or Nothing, Page is going to embarrass him and give him the fight of his life. So, it's interesting. Page came out here, and he got, like, again, he came out with a babyface reaction, but the promo got, like, a mixed reaction from the crowd, and it was because, like, the way he was playing it did come off more heelish, but, like, this has been a character trait of Hangman for years now, where he's, you know, confidence is something that has been an issue for his character. Sometimes he's overconfident, other time he's just like insecure. And I think this segment kind of highlighted that for me, where he came out here and he's just talking all this shit about Punk, and he comes off confident, but it comes off kind of insecure, like he's overcompensating, which I think is interesting, and I think it's a reason. We'll see how the rest of this shapes up. They still have, I think, 3 weeks till the pay-per-view. So I'd assume next week we get Punk talking and maybe Hangman confronts him, but I'd expect this to get pretty heated in the coming weeks, which I think is a good thing. Especially because we know next week Punk is back and he's facing John Silver. And it's John Silver in his hometown, so they're getting heel heat on Punk next week as well. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this crowd shapes up by Double or Nothing, to see who's the more liked one of the two. And it's similar to what they did with Kingston and Punk last year, where Punk got some spicy lines in there and was playing a bit more heelish. So I'm excited for this. I think Hangman and Punk is going to be a great main event for Double or Nothing. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I'm so sorry. Takeshita was announced. Takeshita? I think it's Takeshita. Was announced for Rampage. He's wrestling Jay Lethal. And they showed some highlights from him on Dark over the past few weeks, which I thought was really cool. Having seen him wrestle live last week against Rhett Titus on Dark Elevation, I really like the guy. So I'm excited to see what he can do against Jay Lethal. And we cut backstage and we see Jay, Sanjay, and Satnam. And, they cut a little promo here talking about where the red carpet is before the match. And that's that. So I'm excited for Jay Lethal to get a big singles win here. I'm excited. I gotta assume him and Joe is going to be at Double or Nothing, which should be good. I'm excited for when these two get to meet in the ring. And we'll talk more about Joe a bit later, because there's some interesting things going on with Samoa Joe. We go to Chris Jericho versus Santana in a grudge match here. And this is no longer the influencer Chris Jericho. This is the Wizard Chris Jericho. I did not watch Rampage because I saw it taped live and didn't watch it on TV. So I don't know if they established this new Wizard line, but I'm assuming this has something to do with the fireball that he shot at Eddie Kingston. So it's just so goofy, but I thought these two had a good match. I think Santana continues to shine basically anytime they let him wrestle. He's really good, and he's a genuinely great promo. And Jericho, love him or hate him, the guy is still very good in the ring, and he knows how to get the crowd going. Jericho Appreciation Society continue to be an entertaining little heel group, and it's going to be good to see Eddie Kingston, Santana, and Ortiz finally get their like the revenge on this group of goons here. Though I do still think that Santana, Ortiz, and Eddie Kingston need some backup. Otherwise, they're never gonna get the best of JAS in this feud. So it'll be interesting to see if they bring in Homicide or Hernandez or anybody else. But it feels like they need somebody to come in to even the odds, because this 3-on-5 thing is never going to just go their way, I think. So we'll see what it is. But Jericho won the match after some interference, and then a low blow allowed him to hit the Judas effect. So they did protect. What's his face, Santana here. We go to Samoa Joe, who cuts a promo, a very short one, just saying that he's coming for Jay Lethal. So there's that. In a bit of an interesting segment, we have the Gun Club, who are backstage with Billy Gunn, and they have gifts in their hands, and they're going to give them out to somebody, and they approach the Acclaimed, and they open the boxes, and it's a pair of scissors, because Max and Max and Anthony like to scissor. That Max Caster then attempted to use the scissors on them, but it does seem like this could be a new faction that's being formed here with the Gun Club and the Acclaimed, which just sounds like the most over-the-top group possible, possibly in a good way. The Gun Club have been entertaining when they're on TV, to be honest, and the Acclaimed are always great, so sure. The Varsity Blondes are here, and they call out the House of Black. They have Julia Hart with them. Brian Pillman says he was humbled by his encounter with the House of Black, but now he's been watching everything that's been in his life get torn apart little by little. He's reminded of a quote by his best friend's father, by the best friend of his late father, John Harbaugh, I don't know football. The coach of the Baltimore Ravens. They showed him in the crowd. He was there. The quote was that attack with all the enthusiasm known to mankind. And Pillman says that he didn't do that, and the House of Black drove their group apart. But now he's feeling enthusiastic, and he wants a fight. And the House of Black make their entrance here, and they surround the Varsity Blondes in the ring, and they then beat them down. Julia Hart standing in the corner here, and Malachi Black just approaches her. Malachi was on fire in this segment. This dude just looked fucking scary. And I thought Julia did well, too. She was just, like, quivering in fear. Murphy then grabs Julia and brings her over to the downed Griff Garrison, and Brody King hands her a chair, and they all order her to hit him, and she almost does, but she can't do it. Then Black just goes crazy and rips the eye patch off, and we see her infected eye as they stand over her, but then the Death Triangle run down here, and the House of Black retreat. So, I thought the segment itself was good. I think the issue is the timing with this. And I don't necessarily know that that's all AEW's fault. I mean, it's partially on them because they could have ran with this sooner, but they did this back in, I think, December with Julia getting misted, and we just got this segment now in May, and before this we had one thing on Dark literally on Tuesday, and then aside from that, just been Julia cheating to win her matches. We had, like, no interaction between these teams since this. And it just feels like such, like, a long, drawn-out thing with, like, nothing happening in between. Because after the Julia thing, House of Black would then go on to start a feud with the Lucha Brothers and Death Triangle. Phoenix got injured, which then put that on a complete hold. Then House of Black just kind of stalled and were doing a lot of vignettes, and then they feuded with Fuego for a bit. And now Phoenix came back, and it looked like they were getting ready to go into the feud with them. And then the Varsity Blondes came out here. This just, like, it just felt like kind of a mess. I thought the segment was good. It just felt like timing-wise, this didn't make much sense. I'm going to be interested to see where it goes from here, because it didn't really feel like it's over with Julia. Either she's going to, get rid of the darkness inside of her, or she's going to give in and become, fully evil. So we'll see. But it does seem to be the case that House of Black will continue feuding with Death Triangle moving forward. So, yeah. And then we got a promo from Jade Cargill and the Baddies backstage, Kiera Hogan and Red Velvet, as well as Mark Sterling. And they really put over their victory on on Rampage with their debut as a trios team. And this is really the first trios unit for the women's division. Like, we had the Nightmare Collective, but that was Brandy when she wasn't wrestling, Dr. Luther, Mel, who barely wrestled, and Awesome Kong, who barely wrestled. And then we have Rebel, Britt, and Jamie, but Rebel really doesn't wrestle anymore. So these guys actually have a team name. They're the Baddies. So, like, this feels like our first female faction, which is pretty cool. And I think it was a smart idea to build it around Jade. And she can hopefully elevate Red Velvet to something more meaningful. And it gives Kiera Hogan something to do, who's somebody who I think is vastly underutilized. So getting Kiera Hogan on TV every week, I definitely think is a plus. I think her and Jade together just makes sense. And I'm hopeful that Red Velvet can eventually, get to their level in terms of feeling like she makes sense in the group. Because right now she's still just kind of like, anytime I see her, I just feel like I still just can't, like, she's just like part of the Nightmare family to me. So hopefully this new pairing of these girls can help that. But Jade says that Red Velvet is going to win the Owen Hart Women's Tournament. So we'll see. That sends us to our next Owen Hart Cup qualifier, which is Rey Fenix versus Dante Martin. And this is just everything you could want from these two. This was high flying. This was fast. There was just crazy moves all over the place. Crowd was into this, as expected. I mean, Dante's very over now after the last year that they've built him up, and Phoenix is his return match. So, yeah, you're going to expect that this is going to be a heated one. And it was. This was really fun back and forth here. Arguments could be made for either guy winning this, but I think at the end of the day, Phoenix definitely deserved the win, which he did get. It's just like, Dante's super young, and he's still primarily a tag team wrestler. Fenix is literally in the peak of his career right now, and he just came back from injury. You should capitalize on it and put him in this tournament. So, I mean, I can't hate on them for giving Fenix the win here. Dante didn't need it. He's going to have plenty more years to get these big wins. And it'll come one day sooner than later, and we'll all be shocked. So, Fenix won, and this was just a ton of fun. So, the lineup, and we get the full bracket here. So, we have Rey Fenix versus Kyle O'Reilly. I'm looking forward to that one a lot, actually. I'm going to be interested to see how those two gel. Jeff Hardy versus Darby Allin. So this is one that I'm interested in, because this is literally the dream match that they had for Jeff. And they're putting it in the first round. I'm just going to be interested to see how Jeff does, trying to keep up with Darby. We have Adam Cole versus Dax Harwood, which actually sounds really good. I think it's pretty clear Adam's going to win that. And then, in a surprise, because everybody was wondering who's the last person whenever we get another qualifying match, because they didn't announce one for Rampage. There is none. It's Samoa Joe versus a Joker. So now the speculation is on of who this person could be. We have the guesses that seem to be most dominating are the one that people don't want is Satnam Singh making his debut. The two that people seem to be really gravitating towards are Johnny Gargano or Claudio Castagnoli, formerly known as Cesaro. And then the also other big one is Miro making his return, because nobody knows when he's supposed to come back, but he did, just sign another multi-year deal with AEW, and he's cleared from injury. He's just been filming a TV pilot. So I think all of those are fairly, decent shots. I also think there's a chance it's somebody from New Japan. I don't know who it would be, but I think there's a chance it could be somebody from New Japan. So we'll see. Regardless, if it's any of those names, if it's Miro, Claudio, or Johnny, I think they're winning. I don't think they're losing to Samoa Joe here, and I don't think Joe loses clean. I think it would most likely be lethal interferes or something. So we'll see, but, it's interesting. And we did get we got a really short Darby Allin promo here with Sting, just talking about how the meeting with Jeff Hardy is going to be special. Thunder Rosa came out here, the AEW Women's Champion. She says that everyone has a story, and she stands in front of everyone as their world champion. Today she's La Mera Mera, despite coming in with no expectations, and she'd like to call out the number one contender because she wants to face the best at Double or Nothing, someone who she idolized and someone who she drove 8 hours to see during the early stages of her career, Serena Deeb. Serena Deeb came out and said that she truly believes that AEW can have the best women's division in the world, but to make it happen, the best wrestler in the world needs to be champion. Deeb is on another level. She's in a class of her own. And at Double or Nothing, she's going to take the championship at the pay-per-view. So yeah, I thought the promo was a bit awkward. Thunder Rosa, I absolutely adore. I just think that when she cuts her live promo, she's not really up to snuff with some of the others. But when she does her taped promo, she's really good. And when she's in the ring, she's really good. So if she can get more control over the live promos in front of the audience, I think she'll be just the full package here. And Deeb continues to shine. So this is honestly probably the best women's match that they, I don't even want to say that, because the women's division has gotten pretty strong lately. There are some other big matches like Thunder Rosa Jamie Hayter, Thunder Rosa Toni Storm, Thunder Rosa Ruby Soho, Thunder Rosa Riho. You have a bunch of ones down the line that you can do, but this one feels like one of the biggest matches you can do for the pay-per-view, and probably one of the best. And then we got the announcement for all of the upcoming AEW shows. So Rampage tomorrow, which is on a special start time. It's 5:30 Eastern time because of the playoffs for NBA. Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter versus Toni Storm and Ruby Soho. Takeshita versus Jay Lethal. Hook versus JD Drake. And I believe the final women's qualifying match, which is Riho versus Yuka Sakazaki. And then next week on Dynamite, we have the beginning of the Owen Hart tournament. We have our first round matches for the men's side. Darby Allin versus Jeff Hardy and Adam Cole versus Dax Harwood. MJF and Wardlow will have their contract signing. The FTW Championship will be on the line with Ricky Starks defending against Jungle Boy. And CM Punk versus John Silver in John Silver's hometown. And we would get a John Silver promo before the main event where he just said that he's the meat man and they're in his hometown next week. And and then the official lineup for Double or Nothing, we have Hangman Page versus CM Punk, and then they announced Thunder Rosa versus Serena Deeb for the AEW Women's World Championship right after. And this sent us to the main event. The ROH Women's World Championship unification match, where it was crowning the undisputed champion. Mercedes Martinez would face Deonna Purrazzo. Deonna got a pretty good reaction here coming out, and this was her first appearance on Dynamite. And this is an appearance that I think a lot of people have been wanting for a while. Like, when the Forbidden Door stuff with Impact and AEW first opened up, and people were like, oh, what names from Impact would you like to see on AEW? I think most people that were interested answered Deonna Purrazzo. So it was cool finally getting to see her here. Even if she did lose, which I am still upset by, just because, like, if the companies are going to be working together, which it felt implied here that they were, then I think Deonna having this belt would make sense over Mercedes. Like, I like Mercedes Martinez. I just like Deonna a lot more. And she's much more over with the fans in both promotions. And I just think she's on a much hotter run right now. So I personally would have put it on Deonna, but it is what it is. Maybe the companies aren't actually working together as much as it seems. But who knows? Regardless, I thought this was a perfectly fine match. It wasn't the most exciting main event, but it was a good wrestling match. And surprisingly, Deonna would end up tapping out. Martinez hit a Samoan driver and then a curb stomp and locked in the Romero special, and then transitioned into a dragon sleeper and tapped out Deonna Purrazzo. So, kind of shocking to see Deonna tap, but, you know, I guess they just wanted to get the title onto Mercedes Martinez. So, yeah. In terms of the actual show, I thought this was honestly one of, like, the more mid-tier episodes of AEW Dynamite. Like, it was still a good show, but, like, compared to some of the other weeks we've had in recent times, this just felt, like, very middle of the road. I think the shining thing on this show was the women. I thought that, again, there was just a lot going on with the women's division on this show. We have Julia Hart, who finally got to have some sort of character development. We got stuff with Jamie and Jamie, Britt, Toni, and Ruby, and specifically Jamie and Toni and Ruby and Britt, hyping up that match. We got the Baddies on the show as well. And we got Thunder Rosa and Serena Deeb. So, again, it's just like there was a decent amount of women on the show, all feeling important and all having actual storylines and not just doing random shit. And all of it felt meaningful. So, yeah, I can't fault them. Like, I thought this was a really strong week for the AEW women's division, and it'll continue to be a strong week because tomorrow on Rampage we have two big-time matches. We have Yuka Sakazaki and Riho both making their returns to AEW in a qualifying match, and we had that big tag match with Toni Storm and Ruby versus Jamie and Britt. So, yeah, I would like to say that, you know, props to AEW. It seems like they're slowly but surely making the changes they need. Yeah, outside of this, I'd say the Blackpool Combat Club, that was one of my... That and the Phoenix and Dante match were the two matches on the show I really liked. So, yeah, I think that's going to do it. I don't really think we have anything else to talk about in terms of Dynamite. And we went down the cards for everything else, so as far as I'm aware, there's no other news I need to go over before I wrap things up here. I guess I'll do a double check, but yeah, we have the Forbidden Door sellout. We have we have Mayu Iwatani wrestling possibly in America since she's the SWA champion now, so it makes sense. So that's all I can think of that there actually is. I don't know. I just don't know. Okay, I did find one other thing just so I can have something to end the show on. There's news coming out of Japan that the Japanese Prime Minister has hinted that there's going to be a significant relaxation of border measures starting in June, which means that more foreign talent could be coming into Japan, which would lend credence to, people being able to travel and work in New Japan, Stardom, Pro Wrestling Noah. I think that you're probably going to see some talents from AEW and maybe Impact in the G1 this summer. We already have talents from AEW and Impact, and Ali Zane's just like an indie wrestler in the Best of the Super Juniors. But there's American talent going over, so it's going to be interesting to see, and vice versa, where we could see some more Japanese talent making the jump over to America to wrestle on some shows. So exciting stuff. So this weekend, reminder, the Impact Wrestling Power Hour is back. Under Siege review most likely. Next week we're going to have more AEW Dynamite coverage, more Impact coverage, and a prediction/preview show for the upcoming Best of the Super Juniors tournament. The end of May will have us covering Double or Nothing, which is May 29th, so we'll have a review out on May 30th. Forbidden Door is on June 26th, so stay tuned for that. We'll have predictions for that. We'll have predictions for Double or Nothing. And then I believe, I think Money in the Bank is at the beginning of July, so we'll be covering that as well. And then the G1 as well. So lots of stuff going on in the next few months here, next few weeks even. So stay tuned. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe to us on YouTube, Twitter, or Spotify, anywhere you can find the podcast. Subscribe. Leave us a like if you're on YouTube. Leave us a comment on YouTube. Tell us what you thought about AEW. Who's your favorite AEW wrestler? If you're still listening to this, comment down below. Who is your favorite AEW wrestler? That's what we would like to know. Until next time, thank you for listening. Adios.